all, all the milkman's mistresses suddenly got typhoid
Yeah,
fever.
that's right. What's the milkman bringing? Salmonella typhi, baby. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unbelievable, the podcast where I tell my friend Luis one true story and one fake story, and he tries to guess which is which.
Yes, sir.
Luis and I were roommates for 2 years and friends for many more. Maybe someday even lovers.
So who's to say we're not already, Kurt?
Who's to say? Point being, it takes a lot for one of us to fool the other one, but we're going to do our best. Luis, do you have a fast fact for me that may or may not be true?
I do have a fast fact for you, Kurt. Would you call STEM and laser and scuba, would you call those acronyms?
I think that I would. Yeah.
Yes.
This feels too easy. It feels like a trick, but I'm going to say, yeah, I would call those acronyms.
Well, I'm glad you say yes, because that is correct. Acronyms as defined by the AP Style Guide are those shortenings, initialisms, that you can speak as if they were a real word. So STEM, for example, it's science, technology, the other one, and math, engineering. and STEM, you can say, and that's an acronym. The same with scuba or laser, right? If you're saying a different word, a different combination of letters like NAACP or NCAA, that is not an acronym anymore.
Oh.
That is an initialism, which this is a fact really exclusively if you want to be a prick at your next party. Right?
This is the new Oxford comma.
This is a perfect bait for pedants all over. and so yes, so acronyms are only those that you can say as if they were a word.
Yeah, you totally would have got me if you'd said NAACP. I would have said that's an acronym. I definitely didn't. I didn't know what you were getting at. I think I just got lucky with my answer.
Just a fun guess.
But anyway, I have two stories for you.
Okay.
The first one is the story of Alexander the Great's lost biography.
Ooh.
So this story starts in 1795 with Albert Blythe, who is the Earl of Brentwater. So he's a lord. In addition to being a lord, Albert Blythe does a little bit of archaeology work on the side,
okay,
and a little hobby action, and he gets commissioned by the crown to excavate an archaeological site near Alexandria. It's a minor archaeological site, which is important because of the way that the crown commissions and budgets archaeological expeditions.
Uh-huh.
So what they do during this time is that if it's a minor site, like it's just some unidentified ruins or whatever, then they will give you 35% of the estimated value of whatever you find. If it's a major one, like it's a palace or something, then they'll give you a budget or payment number up front. But Albert Blythe is a minor one.
So if it's a minor one, they will give you the
35% of the value of whatever you find.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you find $100 worth of stuff, you'll get paid $35.
Right.
Basically.
Right. Whereas a big one, they just give you the money up front.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because if you found, the sarcophagus of King Tut, that's going to be an astronomical number. 35% of that's
right.
crazy.
I understand.
Right.
I understand.
Okay. So Albert Blythe goes to Alexandria. He's excavating his plot. It turns out underneath his plot, there's a sealed chamber that is connected to the burial chamber of Ptolemy I.
Okay.
In the chamber, it's mostly just personal effects. It's like some furniture, clothes, a little bit of artwork. But one really significant item is a book written by Ptolemy I that's an eyewitness account of Alexander the Great's campaigns.
Wow.
This is a really, really big deal.
Yeah.
Because historians actually already knew about the existence of this book. There's another biography of Alexander the Great called the Anabasis, which references this eyewitness account, but people mostly just thought that the eyewitness account had been lost to time, that it existed at one point, but it was just kind of gone. And so now it's arguably the most accurate biography of Alexander the Great because it's the only one that's an eyewitness account. So because of the book and the excitement kind of surrounding it, plus the other items, and it seems like all of it got generously valued. The estimated value of all the things that Albert Blythe finds is 280,000-ish pounds. In modern money, that's about 25 million pounds.
Oh my goodness.
So that means his 35% cut would be about 9 million pounds.
Oh, geez.
The crown does not have their, well, you know, that the that times equivalent of 9 million pounds laying around.
The crown is like, hey man, this was a big miscalculation.
Yeah, they're like, we did not think this through so much. So they come to sort of a unique agreement with Albert Blythe. The deal is they're going to let him keep the book, the eyewitness account, as compensation, and the ownership of the book is directly connected to his title, to the earldom that he's the earl of. This is really important wording because of the way that earldoms work. Do you know how titles are passed down in British nobility?
I'm assuming it's something to do with first son, like primogeniture.
Yeah, so it can only be passed through the eldest son.
Right.
So the lord of whatever estate, he gets a title. Sometimes the eldest son gets a title since they're hypothetically going to be earl someday. The lord's wife gets a title, and then other children get what are called courtesy titles, which means they have a nobility title, but it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
But it all hinges on that there's always a lawful male heir that the earl can be passed down to. Okay.
I'm getting nervous.
So, why are you getting nervous?
I don't know. There's just a lot at stake now.
Right. So if the earl ever became extinct, which is what that's the word you use when there is no lawful male heir, then not only would the title go back to the crown, but so would the book too, because it's connected to the estate and title.
Gotcha.
Normally, when that happens, they would just give it to another member of the family, unless there was some crazy reason why they're at odds with the family.
Right.
But in this case, the Blythe family thinks, okay, that probably won't happen because they want to have the ownership of this book that's really coveted. So anyway, Albert Blythe dies. His son, William Blythe, becomes the Earl of Brentwater. William Blythe dies young from consumption, but seems like it's probably alcohol poisoning. He drank a lot. So then his son, James Blythe, becomes the Earl of Brentwater at age 28 in the year 1838.
Okay.
So he's unmarried. He has no children. So that's priority number one, is he's got to get married first and then have children so that the lineage can be secured in case something happens to him.
And we keep the book.
And we keep the book. And we keep the book, no matter what. So 1 year later, age 29, he marries Ada Lighton. Almost immediately, he falls ill.
Damn it.
And ultimately dies from an unspecified disease. Based on some of the accounts of it, it's probably tuberculosis.
Consumption.
But all the accounts are consumption again, technically, yeah. But there's not a whole lot of details known because, of course, when he got sick, the family kept really quiet, and then they made sure no one found out when he died, because they've got to try to conceal this, right? And his wife Ada isn't even pregnant, so there's no hope that like she's gonna have a son or anything.
Damn it.
So yeah, Ada's not pregnant, so they're kind of the family's facing losing their land, their social status, all of their titles, their family home, and the book. Okay? So they formulate a plan. Step one, they let all the house staff go. They either let them go or they move them to another family home.
They
but
murder them.
Or they probably not. Who knows? But basically, all new house staff. Okay. Anyone who asks about James's whereabouts, they just tell them that Lord Blythe is on vacation, or he's away on business, or he's visiting this other family home. Basically, wherever someone asks, hey, have you heard from James? He's not here. He's
busy.
Somewhere else. Okay. He's busy. And then finally, they convince Ada to agree to let James' cousin, William, take his place in the marriage, unofficially, of course, but Ada needs to have an heir that they can claim as James.
Someone who to impregnate the woman.
Yes, yes. And also William sometimes will come stop by the house. He kind of run in really quickly and go straight to the study. So they're just like, there's a male presence in the house, but you gotta keep it moving so nobody gets a good look at William,
It's got sunglasses on and a hat. Like look like an undercover FBI agent running in.
Yeah. Yeah, He's in and he's out real quick. Nobody knows what happened. Undetected. So this works kind of semi-effectively for 3 years, but things kind of start to go downhill pretty rapidly. The first major problem is that in these 3 years, Ada has had 2 daughters and no sons. and she's having trouble getting pregnant a third time, which of course they blame on her. They're like, "What's the deal, Ada? You know we need a son. Why aren't we getting one?"
Typical.
Yeah, they're pretty mean to Ada. I gotta tell you.
Yeah. You know, I think generally these times people were not nice to women.
Yeah.
As some say, it may be continued today, but
but so this is a big problem because, you know, if everything had gone perfectly, she would have had a son right away, and then they would go, okay, James' son. By the way, James just died, and then all the problems are solved, right? But now we're 3 years in, she's not having any sons.
2 daughters now from a man that she doesn't really know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Friends and family, the extended family who doesn't know James is dead, as well as friends, are starting to get suspicious because they're kind of like, okay, why haven't we seen James in 3 years? You know, it's weird that he's suddenly very busy.
He's gone to Key West to blow some steam off.
He's in Mar-a-Lago. But even worse, these rumors that James might be dead or might have disappeared are starting to reach the crown, which the crown really cares about because at this point, King Edward VII is king. He's a big fan of Alexander the Great. He knows he wasn't actually king when Albert Blythe recovered the book, but he knows well about it. And he kind of feels like the crown got the raw end of the deal. In addition, I think he personally just really would like to have the book in his possession. So this is a big deal to him. The crown obviously is not going to come right out and call out the Blythe family and say, like, we think you guys have been trying to pull a weekend at Bernie's on us. But they're a little more sneaky about it. In 1843, they have this big annual garden party.
Ooh, love
and
those.
they invite strategic members of the Blythe family and a couple really close friends. And then individually, a bunch of different people ask each of these family members, do you know where James is? Have you spoken to James?
The truth's going to come out.
And then they, of course, give conflicting answers because they hadn't prepared ahead of time. And some of them even say, like, oh, James is visiting this other extended family, but that extended family is also at the party, so they know that's not true.
God damn it. Oh, get your story
So after... I know they could have avoided all this with proper planning. You know, could have gone on for years.
Yeah, really. I've moved to Mexico. Some people still don't know that.
That's true. You're in Mexico right now?
Oh shit.
So after the garden party, King Edward VII invites Lord Blythe to a meeting, which of course he cannot attend because he's dead.
Naturally.
The Blythe family confesses. They basically come out with their hands up, and the crown, of course, strips them of all their titles, takes the book and adds it to the royal collection, and then eventually in 1866 the book gets donated to the British Museum, where it still is today.
Wow. And so this first-hand account is currently now in the British Museum.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The Blythe family basically fades into the background of obscurity. I mean, it's embarrassing for them, right? But it's also embarrassing for the crown that they didn't know this guy was dead for 3 years. So everybody seems just kind of content to like move on.
More power to them. They kept it up for 3 years. That's huge.
You know, that
and
alone
she was
is pretty
and she was pregnant twice, and no one batted an eye, right?
That's true.
So that's just impressive on its own. And not only that, she was pregnant twice. And what's this? Early 1900s? That's dangerous for a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty bold plan. Actually, I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, it is impressive that they got as far as they did.
Yeah, really. And so they took the book away, and now it's guarded. Wow. So, okay, when was the book found initially?
1795.
Gotcha. Okay. How long was it kept in their possession? When did the truth come out?
The garden party was 1843. So
interesting.
That's 40 something years.
Yeah.
That it was in their possession.
That's whack. Wow. Look at them. Good for you. Good for them. Really, good for them.
Good for them.
Good for them.
Good for them.
Yeah. That's
they saw an opportunity and they seized it.
Yeah, shame that it ended up in the British Museum. You know,
that's true.
You know, I think that's the worst possible. I'd much rather prefer it's in the personal collection.
A lot of quarreling over the legal ownership of a book that was stolen in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. How do you think people in Alexandria feel about this?
That's
they
true.
They don't even know where Alexander's tomb is at, and here they are looking for this closest thing they have to this man. And the British are like, no, I'm going to weekend at Bernie's.
We don't know whose it is, but it belongs to someone British.
It belongs
That's
to
for
the
sure.
crown. Yeah. Nice. I like it.
Okay, so story number 2 now.
Story number 2. I'm ready. Prepared.
This is the story of Typhoid Mary. So we start with
isn't
our
that a rapper. Didn't she feature on Sissa one of the a couple of years ago?
So we start with our protagonist, Mary Mallon, born in 1869 in Ireland. When she's a teenager in 1884, she immigrates to the United States. She lives in New York. First, she works in a lot of different household positions, but finally she kind of settles into a career of being a cook. And then in 1906, she's hired by Charles Warren to be a cook in his summer house in Long Island. So basically what her job is as a cook is different wealthy families or restaurants or hotels will hire her, and then she'll work for the duration of a contract and then move on to somewhere else. So while she's working in this summer house in Long Island, during just a 1 week chunk, August 27th to September 3rd, 6 of the 11 people in the house get sick with typhoid fever.
Damn.
Okay. Pause. Can I give you some background on typhoid fever?
Please, Kurt.
I don't know if you're a typhoid fever expert, but let me
can't say
some context here.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Typhoid fever is caused by this bacteria called Salmonella typhi. It gets in your body, and then it can grow in the intestines, the lymph nodes, the spleen, liver, gallbladder, bone marrow, blood. Basically, it just starts growing, and as it reproduces, it starts shutting down your organs and gives you a really high fever, which is hence the fever part of typhoid fever. It's normally spread by eating or drinking contaminated food or water, normally contaminated by feces of the infected person.
Nice. So pink eye of the body.
Pink eye of the body. But this is why normally it disproportionately affects poorer communities because they're less likely to have access to clean water or sanitation. So right off, it's already kind of weird that 6 people in this super wealthy household have typhoid fever.
Yeah.
This is just kind of how the progression of the disease works. First week, it's just kind of normal cold symptoms, fever, headache, cough, weakness. The second week, you get what's called nervous fever, which is your fever goes up to around 104 degrees Fahrenheit, which is high enough to cause delirium and agitation. So people start starting already to act a little weird. And then also comes with a lot of intestinal and stomach pain, as well as extreme weakness. Normally by the second week, people are too weak to get out of bed.
Yikes.
Third week is when we really kick this bad boy into overdrive. A lot of stuff happens: dehydration, malnutrition, intestinal hemorrhaging, pneumonia, bronchitis, and increased delirium. Normally by the third week, people will be having hallucinations, talking to themselves, trying to touch or grab imaginary objects.
Oh, God.
And then, of course, any number of these things can lead to death, especially when you have multiple at the same time.
Not fun.
Not fun. No. True statement. Not fun. Not ideal. A little bit of background history on typhoid fever. Unrelated, I guess, to the Typhoid Mary story, but I thought it was pretty fun. The possible first detection of typhoid fever was during the Peloponnesian War in 430 BC during the siege of Athens. So there was a big sickness in Athens while they were all walled in the city, right? And a lot of the symptoms of from the accounts of the time sound the same as typhoid fever.
Interesting.
And they also exhumed some bodies from a mass grave and DNA tested them, and there was, I don't know how it couldn't be like either the bacteria is in this DNA or it isn't, but apparently there's some evidence that the bacteria was in this DNA. So I don't know for sure, but it seems pretty likely.
Interesting.
Additionally, Augustus Caesar, it seems like, probably had typhoid, but kept his fever at bay by taking regular ice baths.
Nice. All the stars had typhoid fever.
I know, there's a lot of name dropping going on.
Yeah, really. Oh, you know Pericles, the great general of Athens? Typhus fever, typhoid fever. Oh,
typhoid fever.
The first emperor of the Rome? Typhoid.
Look, all the cool kids are doing it. Can I just have a little typhoid fever?
Please, sir, can you spare some typhoid fever?
Please. For a poor sinner. Trying
to make it big in the city. Give me some typhoid.
Okay. Anyway.
Continue, please.
It's not until 1880 that the bacteria Salmonella typhi is identified and correlated with its cause of typhoid fever. In 1896, the first vaccine is developed and deployed, but at first it's only used for the British Army, and even subsequent vaccines are mostly only used for the military because typhoid fever at kind of the turn of the century was pretty common amongst soldiers just because they're in a lot of unsanitary conditions. Water chlorination, it became common in the early 20th century, kind of decreased the need for publicly available vaccines because started having a lot more publicly available sanitary water. And then the first widespread vaccine was developed in 1911. Antibiotic treatment became available in 1948. However, back to Mary, in which it's still the year 1906, so no public vaccine, no treatment, no water chlorination. And at this point in time, typhoid fever has about a 10% fatality rate. So it's a big deal that 6 of the 11 people in this household all got typhoid. The family, they hire this guy to come check it out, basically figure out the cause. Okay, here's a weird detail. All right, this man's name is either George Sober or George Soper. I don't know why, but there's conflicting spellings everywhere I look. Like half the sources have Sober, half have Soper. Do you want to pick
Yeah, I
which
like
one?
Sober. Sober just is fun.
Okay, all right, we're going with George Sober.
He's a doctor. Baby. He's got a he doesn't drink.
He's actually not a doctor.
Oh no.
No, you're giving him too much credit. He's not a doctor. He is a civil engineer. However, he is dubbed as a quote unquote epidemic fighter. Okay. From what I could tell, his job description is basically he's like the sickness detective.
Ooh.
If somebody's sick, he's gonna figure out what went on. Okay, he's gonna get to the bottom of it. All right. So they hire him to find out what caused the typhoid. Originally, he thinks first maybe it could be some contaminated clams, since they got contaminated in the water and then they were eaten. But that doesn't make sense because not all the sick people ate clams, and also no one else in the area is sick. It's all concentrated in one household.
Right, and they're in New England, right? So that's Clam City.
Yeah, well they're in Long Island in New York.
Okay, Clam City.
Yeah, he checks the milk and cream supply because in the past there had been a lot of cases that had been spread by like the milkman has typhoid fever, and then all the people who get the milk delivered from him get typhoid fever.
All the milkman's mistresses suddenly got typhoid fever.
Yeah, that's right. What's the milkman bringing? Salmonella typhi, baby. But that doesn't turn up anything. He checks the local drainage, checks local cesspools, manureries. He tests the water supply in the area. No Salmonella typhi. So kind of the last loose end is he still thinks maybe it has some connection with the food. Mary at this point is no longer working at the household, so he hasn't gotten to talk to her. But he knows that she doesn't have any symptoms and she didn't get sick. So, and also, of course, all the cases occurred while she was working. So he decides he's got to go track her down and find out if there's something weird going on with her.
Foul play at hand.
Now I have a quote for you from a publication entitled The Annals of Gastroenterology. Okay. No doubt a riveting text. This is from Mary Mallon in the History of Typhoid Fever. Quote, from March 1907, Sober started stalking Mary Mallon in Manhattan, and he revealed that she was transmitting disease and death by her activity. His attempts to obtain samples of Mary's feces, urine, and blood earned him nothing but being chased by her. Sober reconstituted the puzzle by discovering that previously the cook had served in 8 families. 7 of them had experienced cases of typhoid. 22 people presented signs of infection, and some died. Lot to unpack in that quote.
Yeah, really. He's chasing her down.
I mean, George Sober is a man of resolve, okay?
Yeah, really is.
He doesn't even know for sure she's involved, and he's stalking her, trying to get the stool sample.
Yeah, he's like, hey, you've got some typhoid blood, baby. Come on.
He's going to nab her, okay?
You can't run from Sober man.
So after looking into her background, he concludes that Mary Mallon is the first ever documented case of a healthy carrier of Salmonella typhi in the U.S. So basically, her body has the bacteria, but it's for some reason not reproducing enough to give her any symptoms.
Oh, she's asymptomatic.
She's asymptomatic, and then anything that she had cooked that wasn't put to heat. So if she just assembles like a salad or something, then the Salmonella typhi is in it. So when the 6 of 11 people got sick, it was from something she made in the kitchen that she didn't cook.
Wow.
They do the math on this year, because now it's been basically a year, the time she's working at the summer home plus how long he's been stalking her.
Mm-hmm.
There's over 3,000 typhoid cases in New York that year. Probably they all were from Mary. She's the original point of access of typhoid in New York. So 3,000 cases in 1 year.
Oh, that's like a super villain story.
Yeah. So George Sober, he teams up with a couple doctors, and then they go to the police and convince the police that they need to arrest Mary so that they can get a sample from her.
For the love of God, stop her.
The police go to arrest Mary, and she eludes them for 5 hours.
Wow.
Finally, they arrest her. They take her to the New York Department of Health. She almost escapes. And then finally, they get a stool sample from her, and it tests positive for Salmonella typhi.
What has she got to hide? Why is she running away?
We'll get to more of this later, but it seems like no one ever explained to Mary what was happening or why it was happening.
Oh, no.
And she just knows that the police are chasing her when she didn't do anything wrong and telling her that she's killing people.
Oh, poor woman. Oh.
Yeah, I got to tell you, the longer the story goes on, the more you're going to feel bad for Mary.
Geez.
She's really not the villain here. Okay, so after they test her sample and it's positive, they transfer her to a hospital on Northern Brother Island, which is a little island just off the coast of the Bronx. And then pretty shortly after that, she's quarantined in a cottage on the island where she remains for 2 years. So she's there from 1908 to 1910. In 1909, she tries to sue the New York Health Department for her freedom, but she's unsuccessful. Doctors try to treat her with basically every typhoid fever treatment that they have. Nothing works. They offer to remove her gallbladder because they think that's where the source of the bacteria is, but she turns them down. And this is the part where I was going to tell you that no one ever explained to Mary what it means to be a typhoid carrier. So it's entirely possible she had no idea why any of this was happening.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's rough. In 1910, there's a new health commissioner. He makes a promise to Mary that she'll be released, and they'll find her work in a domestic role as long as she promises not to be a cook. Okay, so she's released. Couple years pass. Mary starts cooking again.
Oh, Mary, no.
It seems like maybe she tried out some other jobs, but almost immediately she goes back to being a chef.
Sorry, officer. All I'm good at is cooking. You can't stop me.
She's out there in the world, unbeknownst to New York, cooking away. Suddenly, George Sober notices that there's all these weird clusters of outbreaks of typhoid fever. And he's like, it's Mary.
It's gotta be.
I know
it's
is.
Something. I've got my typhus senses tingling.
So he starts following the trail of all these outbreak cases. But this time, Mary knows George Sober is gonna come. She's way ahead of him. She gets hired under all fake names, and she moves jobs like as often as possible. So literally there's like 3 or 4 years of him getting there like just a little too late to catch her.
Oh man, this is just like Catch Me If You Can, but better.
Yeah, 3 years in total. He's chasing her through New York.
Wow.
Eventually, he catches up to her in 1915 when she's employed at Sloan Maternity Hospital. At that hospital, she worked for 3 months, and she infected 25 people. 2 of them died. And then after her second capture is when the name Typhoid Mary is created. It appears in a lot of newspapers, cartoons, and even in a couple medical dictionaries, which is pretty wild, I think. So they capture her. They take her back to the cottage on Northern Brother Island, where she stays for 23 years until her death in 1938. In 1918, so after she's been there for 3 years a second time, they allow her to take supervised trips to the mainland during the day. But it seems like other than that, for all those 23 years, she never left the island.
Oh, my goodness.
After she dies, allegedly, there is a postmortem autopsy that finds evidence that Mary's gallbladder was the source of the bacteria. So if she had let them take it out however many years ago, she would have been cured.
If only.
But George Sober himself actually says he thinks that this is not a true story, that it's a rumor started by the New York Health Department to help settle public opinion a little bit because people are kind of unnerved that they kept her locked up basically for a lot of years. So maybe there was an autopsy that found they could have cured her. Maybe there wasn't. Either way, she's cremated pretty quickly. Okay. They bury the ashes. 9 people attend her funeral. All in all, conservative estimate is that Mary directly infected at least 122 people, with at least 5 of them dying. However, other sources estimate Mary may have killed over 50 people.
Wow.
As a last little note here, I'm going to read another quote from the Annals of Gastroenterology. The history lesson of Mary Mallon, declared unclean like a leper, may give us some moral lessons on how to protect the ill and how we can be protected from illness. By the time she died, New York health officials had identified more than 400 other healthy carriers of Salmonella typhi, but no one else was forcibly confined or victimized as a quote-unquote unwanted ill.
Wow. Poor Typhoid Mary. She was just misunderstood.
Poor Typhoid Mary, dude.
She nobody got her, man. Nobody understood what she was going through. Plus, like, if you've been marked by society like that, just you're done. Like who's gonna hire you? You know, if people fear dying, they're around you. I'm assuming she never married, right?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't believe so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty well. I mean, on one hand, I feel like she probably should have known not to go back to cooking. She seems not very concerned with playing by the rules, especially all the running from the police and changing your name and stuff. But also, I feel like they definitely violated some ethical codes by going after her and then forcing her to
especially not telling
her a total
her
of 25 years.
Yeah, telling her, hey, Mary, we're coming after you. And she's like, why? Sorry, ma'am, but we're coming after you. No, please tell me why, ma'am. I think you misheard us. We're coming after you, guys.
Yeah, it's hard to say really how much she knew or didn't know. Yeah. You would think that at some point, you know, when they're getting a stool sample or something, they would at least explain to her. But I think what I found from the research is basically that there's nothing saying one way or the other how much she was told, but they clearly never went out of their way.
Do you think that if they would have taken out her gallbladder, do you think then they would have told her what it's for?
You know what? I thought so at first, even though it said it was just a rumor. But then when I did more research and I found out it was the man, the myth, the legend, George Sober himself, who's disputing this claim. Yeah. He's the fact checker. Yeah. Then I was like, no.
The civil engineer.
Wasn't true. The epidemic fighter.
But you see, like, imagine they take her gallbladder out. She's like, why did you just do that? Sorry, man, we just had to. No, but why? Sorry, see ya. Heal.
Bye. Have a nice life.
Without a gallbladder, we have that one.
So what do you think, Luis?
See, here. Okay, so the first one was the secret autobiography, or the secret biography.
Oh, yeah, let me give you a little recap. The first one was the lost autobiography of Alexander the Great, which was concealed by the Blythe family by pretending that James was still alive.
Just traveling.
And the second one was the story of Typhoid Mary, a healthy carrier of typhoid, who infected a lot of people and was forcibly quarantined on an island.
Oh, I hate this, Kurt, because both of them are so plausible, right? like I can, for the first one, it sounds so strange to me that this woman would agree to just get pregnant and try to get a son, regardless of who it is, and then get 2 daughters and still get a daughter and say, I'm going to do it again, get another daughter, and then still keep up the secret. I believe it.
It sounds strange to you that she would agree?
No, it makes sense to me because the British are insane, you know, especially when it comes to titles. But then Typhoid Mary, Kurt, I have to say, I gotta say, you are not one to cite your sources terribly often, and I just know this from you. you're not one to say, actually, this comes from here. Which I understand, you know, not all of us are into it. Neither am I, and I'm a journalist. But whoever, I was willing to trust that you got a lot right. But then you brought up the Annals of Gastroenterology or whatever it's called.
No, you got it. You nailed it.
That threw me off the track. I heard that. I said
that's the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Yeah, I think. Well, the thing is, the second one, Typhoid Mary, sounds almost like a novel, right? So I feel like you could have just pulled this from a novel. Oh my God, Kurt. I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to go with my gut as someone that knows him. I'm going to say Typhoid Mary is the real story.
Typhoid Mary is a real story.
Real story, Typhoid Mary.
That's your final answer?
That is my final answer.
That is correct. You got it. You got it.
Hell yeah.
You know what I will tell you? A couple days ago when I was practicing telling these stories, I told the Typhoid Mary one to my girlfriend. Even though she knew it was a true story, she thought I had made up the Annals of Gastroenterology. She's like, that's so fake. There's no way.
there's no way you came up with a word that big.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so the Alexander the Great, lost biography, not a true story. They're actually Ptolemy the First did write an eyewitness account that was referenced in the Anabasis, but it was truly lost to time.
Really? So that the autobiography is not found at all?
There's never found. No, it's probably gone forever now. But it did exist at one point. There is no Earl of Brentwater. There is no Blythe family.
Those are good names.
There is no Tooth Fairy.
I
spent a lot of time picking out the names.
Those are good British names, Kurt. You know, would you say that the lost history of Alexander is lost to the annals of gastroenterology?
It's lost to the annals of gastroenterology. Cut that out. That's a terrible bit.
Oh wow!
But all the information about how titles work was true. But families made up. The crown commissioning archaeological expeditions made up with the 35% and whatnot.
Oh really? Oh
yeah.
That was one
that
of the
part
things
sounds believable though, huh?
Yeah, that was grounding me in reality. So wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. I was like, the more bureaucratic I make this story, like the more I tie the conflict up in bureaucracy, the more real this is gonna sound. It's like
true.
Like we're like committing fraud because of a legal dispute, basically. A legal ownership dispute with the crown.
Oh my goodness. No, that's good, Kurt. That's awesome. That's great.
All right.
I like that story. I want it to be real, really.
I'm like, man, now I feel cheated.
Yeah, really.
But anyway, so that brings our running score up to 1-1. You've guessed one correctly. I've guessed one correctly.
Oh yeah! Wow, we really got to do a better work at fooling each other.
I know this is gonna be tough.
If this is setting the pattern for the rest of what we have in store, then I'm nervous.
We'll see. Maybe one of us will finally get the big illusion across, the fool, next episode.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we did it, Kurt.
So more work for the future. More deception.
Exactly. More smoke, more mirrors.
More smoke, more mirrors, and I live by that.